All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone again. Again, utilize the chat. This is it. You know, this is informative yet personal webinar. So we want you to be as much as engaged as you want to be. So again, welcome. We are a team from ReadSpeaker, and today we're going to present to you utilizing voice to reach ELL and underserved learners. Ginger's powering the PowerPoint today for me. So I am Kathy Wood. I am the Education Partner Manager here at ReadSpeaker. What does that mean? It's a fancy title to say that I kind of work with all of our partners, whether it be with our LMSs or just educational community groups out there, kind of for brand awareness and to further our integrations. Alongside of me today is Ginger Dewey, our guru of all technical implementations, and Joe Massanella, who is one of our top account managers. So again, welcome everyone. Ginger, next slide. We've got a good program for you today, and it's not going to be too long because we know that, you know, that can kind of get boring. So we're going to do, first part is going to be kind of about the ELL and underserved learners. And the second part, Joe's going to take over and talk about our custom voice options. So ELL learners, you know, we've heard terms out there for a while, ESL, ESOL, ELL. What is ELL learners? Well, it refers to students who come from homes where a language other than English is spoken and who are still acquiring proficiency in English. And again, you know, a lot of times we just think about that K through 5 when we think about this, but it actually is more broad than that. Just some quick facts. They typically live in a home. Uh-oh, we just lost Ginger. Because she's reconnecting. We lost Ginger.
She likes to play hide and seek.
She does. She's actually on satellite internet in the boondocks of South Carolina. Yes, it's being recorded, Joseph, and we'll send out the link to that. So the ELL learner is typically one that lives in a home where English is not spoken. Typically, the only English they hear is either in a school environment or out in the community. English language learners attending school in the United States speak more than 400 languages. Again, these are other statistics that come from this Peabody Vanderbilt study. What was interesting is we learned that they learn on average around 3,000 new words per year. But unfortunately, they generally score lower on academic achievement tests than do their English speaking peers. And what's interesting is Joe, our very own Joe, falls into an ELL learner. Joe, do you want to expand on that just a bit?
Yes. I am an American that lives in Europe. I live in the Netherlands. And of course, I had to learn Dutch. Luckily, I was recruited by ReadSpeaker to help introduce the services to the US. So much of my life is still based around English. But I can say I can relate to the second language students because as a second language person, you, I mean, speaking and listening comes relatively easy, but when you're studying and you're having to write papers and you're reading complicated content, you are at a disadvantage. And there are exceptions to the rule, but in general, you will not be at the same level as the native speakers. And when I'm still in conversations with colleagues at the office, at the Dutch office, I use the vocabulary that they have access to, and you know, the thought process is still at a disadvantage. Now in English, it's the other way around, but it's something that is really something to consider.
Yep. Next slide, Ginger. So this was an interesting chart that the Vanderbilt study also had, and it kind of broke out into two different pots of English language learners. You had your recent immigrants and those that were born in the United States. And again, the ones born in the United States kind of had that sequential bilinguals. And then the ones that were recent immigrants had little or no knowledge of English. So again, when we think about the pain points or the things that the ELL learners are facing, these are two, it's interesting to see the different buckets. Ginger, next slide. And again, based on this Peabody study, it was also that the past schooling experience fell into 3 different categories: no formal education, inconsistent or sporadic education, or they regularly attended one school with a consistent curriculum. So again, when you're talking about ELL learners, you have a wide gamut of their experiences. So moving from ELL to underserved learners. And underserved learners, when we were kind of researching, the term underserved learners, some studies saw this, that some people feel it could be derogatory terms and that sort of thing. But when you think about underserved learners in the United States, those are students who are considered, and most commonly include students from low-income backgrounds, students who are first in their families to attend college, and or students who identify as African American or Latino. And when you look at those statistics for those students who fall under the category of underserved learners, compared to their white counterparts, only 17% of Hispanic adults have earned a higher degree versus their counterparts. And Black students were 25% less likely to graduate versus their white counterparts. Now, I don't know if you want to think about, your own community and put in the chat if you see this in your own community in terms of underserved populations and or ELL learners. I know in Texas, we have a large Hispanic population. So, again, use this chat, Joseph, especially you in Texas, if you can kind of relate to this in your local communities. Ginger, next slide. So with the underserved learners, and these are unfortunate statistics, they tend to have had a lower quality early education experience. And when you think about building on your educational experiences, if you're K through 5 or 5 through 9 or 9 through 12 years, we're in a lower quality education environment, you are a real disadvantage once you hit that higher ed level. And, again, it was all these studies that we were doing this research on for this webinar, and this is kind of a dust statement, but when one professor is lecturing to hundreds of students in a week, it's really impossible for that educator to support these distinct learning needs. You can have all the office hours in the world, but these students all, again, have had different learning experiences building up to this higher education level. And so how do you meet those needs for those distinct learners? Ginger? All right, quick poll. And I'm going to put this up on the, hopefully it pops up correctly. True or false? Adults are better at learning a second language than young children. Okay, the majority of you said false. Ginger? It's actually true. Again, young children versus adolescents and adults. And why does this study, again, we can all have our own opinions. Based on the study that we use for this research, adolescents and adults are better because their learning actually takes in a more highly situation, so complex communication. So whereas children are having these small little social conversations, the adults are having more complex conversations, and therefore, again, based on the study, learn it better. Let's go to the next poll. True or false? It takes between 5 to 7 years to become proficient enough in a second language to succeed in an English-only classroom. What do you think? It's actually true. After only 1 or 2 years of learning a second language, a student can typically communicate in social settings, but not have sufficient knowledge of a language to be successful in that academic environment. And when you think about that, that's true. So I think about my two sons. One of them is already out of high school. One is a junior in high school, and both took 2 years of Spanish. Well, if we ever visited a Spanish-speaking country, I can probably say that we could figure out where the bathroom is and probably order water and a few other things. But they certainly were not immersed enough or had enough years of that language to be in a classroom where that was totally spoken. And again, that's just based on, my two kids. But again, that's kind of, when you think about it that way, it really is true. Ginger, next slide. So let's jump in and let's make some connections and connect the dots. So we've talked about ELL learners, and we've talked about underserved learners. And how does that really tie into what ReadSpeaker does and how ReadSpeaker can benefit these students? ReadSpeaker, if you're not familiar with ReadSpeaker, we are a text-to-speech company, but we also include several accessibility tools with our product. We have over 20 years of experience in the market, and we're used by over 1,500 institutions globally, and that is K-12 through higher ed through corporate learning. And we help everyone, not just a few. And so when we talk about accessibility tools, I don't want you to have that tunnel vision thought of accessibility tools are only for students who have learning challenges or learning disabilities. And again, it's always good to point out that our products are very easy to use and implement. Ginger, next slide. Ginger, I'm going to hand this off to you. Unmute yourself before you start talking. You're still muted, Ginger. There we go.
Okay. Now maybe, hopefully it'll stay on this time. Text-to-speech, who benefits? When you think about text-to-speech, there are a lot of people that benefit from it. Up on the screen, you have 3 circles with engagement, accessibility, and convenience. And you can read what's there, but let's talk about students. Let's talk about different places you use text-to-speech. Have you ever listened to an audiobook or listened while you read along? That's one place that you can use it. And a lot of times it's great just for breaking up burnout. 20% of the population have limited literacy skills, visual impairments, learning disabilities, foreign-born, dyslexia. And we want to be able to use it on the go. So mobility is important, and engagement does help with the foreign languages, your online learners, because when you're an online learner, a lot of times you feel isolated. And this helps build that engagement. Kathy?
This is one of my favorite things to share, is Abraham Lincoln's quote. And again, I've used this several times, and I actually did the research and found the paper that he was quoted in for this. And so it was really cool to see that. But he once stated, when I read aloud, 2 senses catch the idea. First, I see what I read. Second, I hear it, and therefore I can remember it better. And again, we have all different types of learners. I'm very visual. Really irritates my husband how visual I am in terms of learning. He'll say, let's do this. And I say, well, I need to see what you're talking about because that's just the way I learn. But again, it's that multimodal way of learning. So again, using those different senses to learn. Ginger, next slide. And that ties into UDL. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with UDL, but this is a methodology that ReadSpeaker truly believes in. And it's based on scientific insights, but it's about those equal opportunities for all students to learn. And when you have something that works for everyone, but can also be customized and adjusted for those individual needs, what better way to provide students a way for them to learn by allowing them tools that they use that can help them learn in the best way they learn themselves. Ginger?
On the screen, you see what our ReadSpeaker button looks like. And when I look at this, first off, I don't know why it says located on the left side of Blackboard and Canvas across the middle of it. Apparently that is something that got typed in and didn't get erased. So I apologize for that. But there are several tools that really help folks. And one of them is settings, because with settings, you customize it to what you want, not what your neighbor wants or this student or that student. You're going to customize it the way it looks for you on your device. That means the highlighting colors, the reading speeds, the text mode, whether or not you have the toolbar expanded or not expanded when you're in DocReader. All of that is held within the settings. Another really great tool is Enlarge Text. And most people think, well, that's just for low vision, but Ginger, you wear glasses, so what's the big deal? Well, Enlarge Text is more than just low vision. First off, because the text is larger, when it's reading it at the bottom of the page, the highlight looks like it's bigger. And sorry about that.
I was going to say, while Ginger's reconnecting, one of my favorite things, and Joe, you can kind of put your input into this too, is my favorite is the reading speed. Being from the South, we talk a little slower than some of our counterparts in the rest of the United States or the world. And so being able to adjust the reading speed, and again, that kind of ties into your ELL learners who need to consume and digest information maybe a little bit slower so they can comprehend it a little bit better. The reading speed is always one of my favorite tools.
Well, I have to say that as an account manager, the great advantage of ReadSpeaker is that it's put right into where the students are accessing the content. So when they log into Canvas or D2L, it will be right there. They don't have to register with disability services. They don't have to ask for it. It's there for anyone who wants to make use of it, and thereby it's really used. And millions of students across the country will utilize ReadSpeaker each week, but especially because it's right in the learning platform.
Going back to the enlarged text, because the text is larger, the highlight on it is larger. So gamers listen in normal speed, but need the action on the screen. So seeing it move quickly helps engage them. And then this is something that I wish that I had in college, and you can see my gray hair and know that ReadSpeaker wasn't even around when I was in college. But I struggled through my EdSci course. It was very dry material, and I just couldn't get into it. And there was all this minute detail. If I had had this, I could have read that information and gleaned those important pieces of information, because it's not showing me everything at one time. So that lets me grab the information a little bit better. The other two tools that come into play quite a lot are Dictionary and Translate for our second language learners, because they've got to look up a word to see what it means or translate it into their native language to see what it means. And we lost Joe.
The next slide, though, I'm excited about. If you haven't seen ReadSpeaker in action, this is a quick video highlighting a lot of our tools in less than 2 minutes. So, Ginger.
There we go.
I'm not getting it.
It's not loaded yet.
In today's education landscape, content is increasingly interactive, and audio is a compelling part of this landscape.
Providing an audio version of learning content meets accessibility requirements, increases engagement, and has shown to improve results for both users and for the organizations that implement it. Text-to-speech technology is an essential step toward universal design for learning, which supports learners of all types.
How can your organization provide audio technology quickly, easily, and cost-efficiently?
At ReadSpeaker, we develop easy-to-integrate easy-to-use text-to-speech solutions specifically for education. Whether creating audio files to adapt to online or offline learning content, or integrating our web-based services which automatically speech-enable content, your organization can provide learners with audio versions of content and audio-enhanced reading and studying tools on any device, quickly and easily, and directly within any learning environment.
With the click of a button, text is read aloud and highlighted at the same time. Any text can be read aloud, even specialized text such as STEAM content or industry-specific vocabulary.
The absolute value of the quantity x minus 2 equals x plus 13.
And users can personalize their online reading experience with a variety of settings and speech-enabled tools, and use them in a multitude of ways.
Learners can use the Listen button to speech-enable tests, exams and quizzes within your own secure learning environment, assessment platforms, even locked browsers and proprietary proctoring systems.
ReadSpeaker's unsurpassed voice quality and readily available, fully integrated Listen button means that the service has high usage. Whether learners are children, teenagers, adults, employees, or language learners, text-to-speech is an effective way of supporting them for institutions and organizations of all types.
Ready to provide your learners with the latest in audio learning tools? Request a demo today.
You'll have to, yeah. So that kind of showed you just a quick highlight. And again, Ginger's wonderful internet is a little lagging today. So some of it didn't match up. I know she got Starlink and it's not being gentle with her today. But that gave you a quick overview of just some of what ReadSpeaker tools can do for learners. And what I do want to emphasize before I hand this over to Joe to talk about custom voice is ReadSpeaker offers a free demo. A free sandbox environment. You get to play with it with your content in your environment, no strings attached, absolutely no strings attached. And because we feel it's the best way to figure out if something works for you is to kick the tires. And all you have to do is just reach out to one of us and say, I would love to get a sandbox environment, and we can get you set up. We also offer, free support for the life of the license. I think that's important to mention. So anytime you even just want to do refresher courses for your faculty or staff, or continuing ed or anything like that, that's always included with our ReadSpeaker license. So Joe, I'm going to hand this over to you to talk about custom voice.
Okay, so we were talking about ReadSpeaker and our services for education. And we have a whole team of engineers that actually create these voices. So we're in charge of the whole process. If you deal with other vendors that provide text-to-speech, they are leasing the voices from another company. Because we can create the voices, we can correct pronunciation, we can constantly upgrade them and improve the quality. And we can also actually, and we are doing this now for education-based companies, create a custom voice based on your own voice actor. So if you, like, I'm an account manager from Wisconsin to New York to Georgia. So these are all different areas, all different dialects, if you will. And it does really make sense to have a voice created that the local population and the students can really relate to. And this is something that we will be doing more and more of. And it's a way to distinguish your brand and better relate to the community that you're serving. So we are, of course, our services for education, currently known as an innovative way to create a more engaging and accessible online experience by creating that rich bimodal learning experience. But again, we have the capability using AI-driven capability to deliver AI-driven custom branded voices for learning platforms. And this would be a voice engine that is distinct to your organization. Only your platform will have access to it. Would be based on as I mentioned, on the voice actor of your choice, using our new DNN HQ micro technology. And the voices really are 100% human sounding. So when you think of a voice that's appropriate for grade school, It would have to be warmer, maybe a little less serious. Children learn better when they laugh sometimes. So it would have to have a sense of humor to it, maybe a little bit different for middle school, high school, and university. So all of these voices can be tweaked, created to really address the need of those specific students. And I think that in the coming years, this will be more and more common. So, as I said, we now produce standard voices in 30 different languages, but we can also create those branded voices in those languages as well. Again, unique, exclusively available to you, tailored. Each change the pronunciation of any word or phrase in your brand lexicon, add emotions and voice for key expressions such as your slogan, and really create a unique learning experience with the voice of your choice.
Well, and I think it's also important to mention too, Joe, when we were talking about, voices, it is very much a learning preference too, and being in a tool, let's just call it accessibility tool for students or even corporate learning, to be able to change a voice based on their preference. It could be so much as somebody has had a bad experience with a female teacher in the past, therefore they want to hear something in a male voice. Or they have 100% online classes, and just to break up the monotony. And my son did this, my 16-year-old son did this. He loved listening to something in a British accent. These things can all be considered tools for your students, and they're all learning preferences when we think about being able to provide all these different voices for a learner.
And if you think about your alumni that have become well known, they might want to volunteer their time to create this voice. It would be a voice that would be easily recognizable. And I think it would be a great success for the community itself to have such a voice be the symbol of your brand.
Joe, we have
Sure.
a question. What makes the voice AI driven? Is it a virtual assistant?
The voice actors are real people that we base the voice on. So that's where the AI-driven technology comes in. Now, the voice itself can be added to your learning platform to read out the content. It could be a virtual assistant. It could be your advertisements. It can be used all across all your touch points with your community. But the AI-driven, that's the way that we create the voice.
Yeah, and when we were talking about this internally the other day, we were talking about all the voices that if you closed your eyes, whether you have your TV on and a commercial comes on, that there are so many recognizable brands just based on their actors and their voices that you can automatically tell who they are just based on that sound. And so when we talk about branding, I mean, it could be something like you have a famous alumni, excuse me, let's say, Brad Pitt is a famous alumni of one of your institutions, and they decide that they want to, he be the brand of their institution, or, a famous athlete. So again, those are things that kind of, marry together that institution and this brand.
Yes, I can read out what's on the screen here, but the custom voice creative process, there is an assessment process deciding which voice will be applied first. Now, the person that would be, the voice will be based on has to be assessed and has to be determined that they will be able to work with our engineers. But if that all goes well, move to specifications, defining the voice profile, which best suits your brand. Selection, well, we can help select the voice actor, but it really works out better when it's coming from your side, when you know what's best for your brand, and we find a way to work with that actor, setting up a studio, so on and so forth, working remotely together. Testing, testing audience response to the voices on the shortlist is done, and processing and fine tuning, where we have the raw material, but then we create it. The ability for that voice engine to be used in different scenarios. So it could be for IVR, it could be for your website, it could be for your courses, so on and so forth. And here is what we think are a couple of great custom voices that we've created.
Well, the voice file isn't for that one for some reason. So we'll go on to this one.
This is our Molly voice.
And it takes a moment to load.
J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter series of books. In these books, the game of Quidditch became famous. Quidditch is a game played on broomsticks. Prior to the writing of these books, the word Quidditch did not exist. Now, it is not only a common word in many households, but Quidditch games are now played on many campuses. Players ride their brooms across the game field, called a pitch, and try to pass a ball, called a quaffle, through their 3 hoops at the end of the field. There are now Quidditch teams across many colleges that have competitions as you would experience in college football, baseball, or basketball. Students playing Quidditch enjoy the sport and get exercise, which helps to burn off stress. All in all, in the writing of the Harry Potter books, you have to wonder if J.K. Rowling knew that not only would her books provide pleasure reading for many people, but she would open the imagination to new.
Now, I could imagine that voice wouldn't be appropriate for higher ed, but I think grade school children would really enjoy hearing someone that is of their own level reading out content, especially books and things of that nature.
And before we move any further, does anybody have any questions or insights or anything they want to share? Feel free to put it in the chat. Again, when we talk about, voice, and Joe, you might want to mention this too, with Sonos and the voice act that we've done with them, with Spotify, all of those different things, were done with ReadSpeaker voices.
Yeah, one of my clients, a large publisher for K-12 districts out west, had us create a custom voice based on one of their voice actors that they had been using. They have quite a few of them, but this particular person was used to read out books for their platform. The voice that we created so closely resembles this voice actor that my client could not wait to go live with the voice. They were enthralled. They were thrilled by the quality and how this was going to up their game against the competition when it comes to providing a K-12 online education. So it's nice to create a custom voice. It's nice to be involved in this, but it's thrilling to see clients so satisfied with the quality and feeling so confident about the choices that they made to partner with us to have this voice created. It was very rewarding.
And again,
I remember.
Sorry, Ginger, go ahead.
I remember when I was much younger, our local library had someone who would read the newspaper and record it each day. And if they had a custom voice, then they would be able to generate that without having to employ volunteers to actually read it and record it on cassette tapes. They could actually have it played for them. So that's something else to think about, is how newspapers are using it.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to also reiterate the fact that we have our own internal linguistics team, as Joe mentioned, and so we own the entire process of these voices. And so even our voices that are not, quote, custom voices that are already inside of our tools, for our LMSs, say that you have a professor or your president of your institution has a very odd sounding name, we can customize, it to read appropriately, and it doesn't take you a month to get that support ticket put through. And also if you have an acronym, let's just say you're Kennesaw State University, and every time it is KSU on the screen, it can read Kennesaw State University. Those are customizations that we can make on the fly because we own the entire process. Now, Ross, you're asking about screen readers for our blind students. So screen readers are different. Screen readers are about the navigation of the page. Ginger, did you want to talk a little bit more about that versus text?
Yeah. When you are working with a screen reader, it's reading every movement of the mouse. So that's navigation. It has abilities to skip, to lists, and things like that. Whereas a web reader is strictly reading what is there. It is not reading the navigation. So we don't really work with a lot of blind students because they're using things like JAWS or NVDA. Now, they could use our player along with their JAWS or NVDA and swap the voice over to ours by when they click on the link for listen, then it would be playing our voice instead of the JAWS voice. And that might be something that they could break up the monotony with. And going a step beyond that, our tools are keyboard controlled. So not only do you have them on screen, but if you do need keyboard control, then we do have that.
I just wanted to say, I think ReadSpeaker is in a unique position because our CTO, the person who invented this technology that has created this wonderful worldwide business, is blind. So he didn't create it to replace the screenwriter. He wanted to bridge the gap for people that had literacy issues. But we really know the restraints of ReadSpeaker, where it's beneficial, where it's not, because we actually have the benefit of having the opinion of a blind person on our staff. So we're very aware of the difference between screen readers and what WebReader is designed to do.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, when we talk about that, is ReadSpeaker is very much not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And so, with our team that founded, the first ReadSpeaker products in &99, as Joe mentioned, one of our co-founders being blind, I think that really, his input, was, the word beneficial doesn't even begin to describe it.
One of the things that Kathy talked about a moment ago was we can change the pronunciation of a name. We have one college that is client who is very close to the Canadian border, but in the US. And they have a president that is French, speaks French, the name's French. So when our US voice read the French name, of course, it was massacring the accents and everything. So we programmed it to where the correct French pronunciation was said by our English voice so that it came across. Does ReadSpeaker have the ability to read math, chemistry, equations, or expressions? Yes and no. We do have it in some places already, and we are in the process of a math project, a major one, that we hope to have launched by the end of the year, to where it will read everything up through calculus. And as soon as we finish that, we will begin working on the chemistry and physics. Right now, we read basically up through the beginning of intermediate algebra.
Yeah, and I put the link there to our blog that kind of started talking about ReadSpeaker reading math and gives you a demo of it. But again, if you have use cases and that sort of thing, we're always open to getting them. Ginger's been working on that project for a while now to make, to test almost every single use case that's out there. And I wouldn't call it a pet project. I would call it probably driving insane, Ginger insane project. But that's her notebook full of math things that she is wanting to make sure that our player can read. And so again, it's, we see some of the gaps, but we have started the process, and you'll see in that demo, it reading and highlighting those particular ones. And again, if you find something that it's not reading correctly, guess what? We can make changes.
Double time.
Yeah, and again, we have a lot of different demos on our website that you can kind of test that out. And Ross, it's good to mention that too, because when you think about jobs or places where people have to digest information at a faster pace, let's just say they're going to be in a courtroom and having to type out all of the information, they're going to have to learn how to get that information quickly. My sister at 48 has gone back to nursing school. She's going to have to learn to hear things in a faster pace when doctors are shouting information or, medicines and that sort of thing. So it's very, on the flip side of slowing something down for people that may not, understand English or even if you're studying Spanish, and being able to slow it down to hear it better, because we do have a translate feature. And if you have a document that's in Spanish, guess what? We can read it in Spanish to you. But again, on the flip side, speeding something up is also another great tool.
And one thing about interviews for those areas where information comes at you fast, whether that's police, medical, fire, as Kathy said, courtroom reporting, a lot of times the interviewer will say something very quickly just to see whether or not they can catch what was being said, to see if they have that soft skill. So by practicing that soft skill, it really does help.
Wow, Ross, a podcast up to 3 times the speed? That's crazy.
I can tell you, I don't listen at 3 times the speed. I listen at 1 times the speed.
That's great. I do want to mention again, on the screen is our contact information. If you have any question, big or small, send us an email. That's what we're here for. Again, the education page that's listed up on the screen, if you are a Canvas user, if you're a D2L user, if you're a Blackboard user, Moodle user, whoever, there's a separate page for each one of those that kind of dives a little bit deeper into each LMS. Go check it out. Go play around. There are some chances for you to hear some of the different voices. And, again, we just always love to hear feedback from you guys, whether you're a ReadSpeaker user or not. I think as a collective, we all can learn something from each other. And so I hope today has been beneficial for you guys. There will be a link sent to the recording so that you can have that. And also I will, if anybody wants a copy of the PowerPoint slide, let me know. Just email me, kathy.wood@readspeaker.com, and I'll shoot you a link for that as well. But really, guys, I appreciate it. Again, that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but I hope that something resonated with you. I think we all are here for the benefit of our learners. Again, whether it be our K through 5s all the way to corporate learners. So again, we want to thank you for your time, and check out ReadSpeaker. Join us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We love to share lots of information. And if you're at a conference coming up, come say hi to us. So we'll be at several different conferences over the next couple of months. And if you're going to be at Fusion, we'll be at Fusion, and also the AHEAD conference. So again, thank you so much. Everyone have a great day, and enjoy the 4th of July weekend.
Take care, everybody.
Most definitely.
Yes,
Take care.
Down, Regina. We'll have somebody there as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.